सदगुरु श्री ની જય, સ્વામિનારાયણ ભગવાનની જય તથા અનંત અનાદિ મુક્તોની જય. A humble prayer in their lotus feet and our Guru, Anadi Muktraj Param Puja Narayan Mama and Anadi Muktraj Param Puja Leela Masi's lotus feet to augment this assembly with their divinity and grace, and to enhance our knowledge and guide us towards them. I want to apologize upfront if I'm not as organized in my thoughts today. I've been suffering with fever this week and I'm still on antibiotics. I wanted to cancel today, but Lord Swaminarayan gave me the strength to make it. So please pardon me if I'm low energy and disoriented. We have come long ways in the knowledge sharing journey that we embarked upon some 10-11 weeks ago. In the first phase, we spent 4 weeks understanding soul, body, and mind. During those conversations, we mapped belief system in other religions as well as scientific studies around soul, body, and mind to the Hindu and Swaminarayan philosophy, and also understood in depth the concept of 24 elements. In the second phase, we looked at many different religions and belief systems, ancient and the new world, drew some family trees of gods, mapped them to Hindu god family trees, and walked to the level of Virat Purush. Beyond Virat Purush, there were not very many references except for Hinduism and Srimad Bhagavad. We also mapped astronomical discoveries as well as the concept of universe being a living organism. We realized with all this mapping and study that there is a huge hierarchical world up there from the perspective of spirituality, biology, physics, and mathematics. In the end, we tried to map the dimensions mentioned in Vachnamritam and Srimad Bhagavad to present-day knowledge, wherein we mapped 14 worlds to solar system and Pradhan Purush to a galaxy. And we did that based on a yojan is equal to 8 miles. There is a suggestion from a very knowledgeable person that the yojan could be equal to half a mile, and in one of the future sessions we'll talk about that. But this brings us almost to the end of second phase of our journey. As we end the second phase, one question that needs to be answered is why so many levels? Why not have one Pradhan Purush manage a galaxy and be done with that? Why have a hierarchical structure that is complicated to grasp? Why does each level screen the souls from their superiors? Why, why, why? To explain this, let's go back to our corporate world example. We had mapped engineers and team leads. Let's map Virat Purush level to a manager and Pradhan Purush to a director. In a corporation, a manager is responsible to manage the projects assigned to him or her as well as the team. A director is responsible for the entire budget, all the product and projects in the division, and the final delivery of the product. With large enterprise corporations, over a period of time, due to growth aspirations, many hierarchical levels get formed. I once worked for a company where a VP reported into a VP, who in turn reported into another VP. I've also seen people at VP and SVP levels as individual contributors, with no one reporting to them. When too much of this gets in, corporations start defining something called a span of control. The span of control is nothing but the number of direct reports or the team size underneath each level that is mandatory. Ideal number of direct reports based on organizational behavioral studies is 8 to 9. In the real world, this number varies from 5 to 12 people. Based on this, when span of control is brought in, typically a manager ends up having anywhere between 5 to 12 reports, and a director ends up having a team of 40 to 60 people with 8 to 9 direct reports. Any number higher than this calls for additional management people. Any number lower than this calls for merger of teams under unified management. Just as for humans, it is difficult to effectively manage more than 8 to 9, at the best 12 direct reports, so it is with all other beings within the perishable world. There is a limit to which one entity can manage, and it calls for additional layers of management. Since all the levels that we have talked about are within Mood Maya, they are limited by the physics and mathematics and boundaries of those, and therefore the entities within are also limited in how much they can manage. They cannot manage it all, and they need more management levels to take care of lower level stuff. This explains why the hierarchy. In fact, similar to corporate political behaviors, there are 3 types of galaxy interactions that have been identified, namely collisions, cannibalism, and harassment. We see all these 3 behaviors in the corporate political world as well. Interesting how there is a mapping in terminology. Now, each level wants to maintain its command and influence over the levels underneath. For example, once my sister's manager's manager asked her to join for lunch with a very big client. This made my sister's manager upset and insecure. The insecurity comes in because of the attachment and fear of losing what one has. A similar thing exists at higher strata as well for everything that is underneath mood maya. The obscuring of higher levels is to maintain one's own influence. So during the lunch meeting with the client, my sister got a glimpse of the personality of her manager's manager. With a few such instances, my sister can start putting together a profile of her manager's manager, but since the interaction is limited, the profile will not be accurate. So if she describes her manager's manager to people who work for her, the description will not be complete. She may also not always distinguish between her manager's manager and her manager, and may simply say, my management or my executives. That is exactly what has happened to the spiritual world and the spiritual scriptures. So this explains why each level screens the level above, and why isn't there a clear explanation for each level that is known to everyone. There is a related question on why the creation, why go through this process, why not liberate all the souls without going through the process. And we will talk more about it when we discuss the theory of creation next week. Last week we talked about 8 veils all the way from earth element to mood maya. Based on what we know today by way of science and astronomy, we map mood maya to the all-pervasive, omnipresent dark matter. We also talked about the dual nature of mood maya, jad or lifeless, and dark and chidatmak or with life and brilliance in the past. Now, the most common and widely accepted theory of creation is that there was a big bang, and from a speck of light, through some mysterious forces and reasons, the universe expanded and energy to matter conversion happened. When we hear the word Big Bang, we tend to relate it to sound, a big explosion sound. But it actually relates to rapid explosive expansion of the universe, not to a sound. The universe was 4,880 degrees Fahrenheit hot, and then started cooling down to form matter. It is believed that in its early stages, universe expanded at a speed greater than light. This generated massive gravity waves, which have recently been detected by a team working at South Pole called BICEP 2. There have been heat maps generated through infrared cameras, which also support this theory of rapid expansion and then cooling to form matter. Based on the Big Bang theory, the tiny speck of extremely high energy, smaller than the size of atom, is from where the entire universe emerged. Think of the immenseness of that speck of energy. How great it must be that it expanded into this entire universe. It is said that there are more stars in the universe than the grains of sand on the earth. When one star goes supernova, it releases energy of a few octillion nuclear warheads. That is 10 followed by 27 zeros. This is just one star that is blowing up. There is one such star blowing up in the universe every second. And these supernovas and stars plus any other visible matter in terms of gases, nebulas, planets, etc., forms only 4.5% of the total mass energy combined. All this was compressed and included in something as small as an atom. Imagine what would happen if we were exposed to that energy directly, all of a sudden. We are unable to tolerate direct rays from sun for more than 5 to 10 minutes. And sun is just a small yellow dwarf. Our body definitely cannot sustain such an onslaught of energy. Even if we were identified with the soul, how can we tolerate the energy of trillions and trillions of suns packed in a tiny speck? We will be totally blinded and burnt by it. Now think of a place that is entirely filled with such brilliance. Not just a tiny speck, the entire place is filled with such brilliance. And now think of the source of this brilliance. In Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna has to ask Lord Krishna to take away his Vishwarup, since he could not tolerate its immenseness and brilliance. There was a devotee of Lord Swaminarayan, Ladki Bai, who started screaming, "I'm burning," when she got exposed to the brilliance of Lord Swaminarayan all of a sudden. Lord Swaminarayan then immediately made her capable of tolerating that brilliance, and she was able to enjoy the bliss. So if we wanted to see what is beyond Big Bang, what is the cause of Big Bang? What created Big Bang? Do we have the ability to do that? Science says no. But it does speculate about what could be there. Some spiritual thought streams say yes. Some are very confused about it. Of the few belief systems that say yes, there are a few who are able to say that there are levels of brilliance beyond the darkness of Maya. Hardly one or two believe that the brilliance has a source, a definite divine embodiment of God. But that's where most spiritual paths end. Spirituality described by Lord Swaminarayan says a definite, glaring yes. A soul, through advanced meditation, can generate the ability to sustain that tremendous energy. Not only that, the soul is able to enjoy the bliss and the pleasure of that tremendous energy. Swaminarayan philosophy also clearly describes multiple levels of the brilliance and says that each level of brilliance or the immanent form has a definite divinely embodied source, the transcendent form associated with it. Since there is not much knowledge available elsewhere, we will stay very close to our home of Swaminarayan philosophy. As we enter this third and the final phase of our journey, we need to understand that the description of this phase is not found in any other scripture all over the world except for Swaminarayan philosophy. Bhagavad Gita talks a little bit about it. Srimad Bhagavat makes fleeting and clouded references to it. But that's it. So the hope is that by this time we have established enough credibility to trust the knowledge imparted by Lord Swaminarayan, Sri Abji Bapa Sri and Anantanadi Mukta and our Guru Anadi Muktraj, Param Pujya Narayan Mama. So let's delve right into our phase 3. As part of that, we will walk through the stages 4 and 3 of hierarchy today. On WebEx, we have a picture of these two stages. Just as Pradhan Purush is associated with Pradhan Prakriti or Pradhan Maya, the Purush associated with Moor Maya that we have been talking about in last couple of weeks is Moor Purush. The fact that there are two levels, the Pradhan level and the Mood level of Purush and Prakriti, is not well understood through any scriptures available except Lord Swaminarayan's philosophy. Moor Purush is also known as Mahapurush, Ishwar and Prakriti Purush. Moor Purush advented on this earth as Lord Krishna, and by far it is the most superior avatar. So let's pause a little bit and understand the distinction of avatar and avatari. The superior hierarchical entity is called the avatari of the lower strata. For example, Matsya, Kurma, etc. are avatars of avatari Lord Vishnu. So Lord Vishnu is the avatari. From that perspective, all the manifestation of earth, of any and all spiritual strata, are the avatar of Purna Purushottam Avatari Lord Swaminarayan. So Moor Purush is amongst the avatars that have manifested on earth. Moor Purush is the superior avatar. For clarity, we will call the spiritual stratum entity as Mood Purush and the manifestation on earth as Lord Krishna. The divine abode of Mood Purush is called Golok. At the time of creation, Mood Maya is created from the body of Mood Purush. The abode of Golok is also created, and from there begins the process of creation of the universe. Once the separation of Maya happens and the divine abode is created, infinite number of Pradhan Purush are born through unification of Mood Purush and Mood Maya. Just as Virat Purush and Mahat Tattva are born from Pradhan Purush and the feminine counterpart Pradhan Prakriti, Pradhan Purush are born from Mood Purush and the feminine counterpart Mood Maya or Mood Prakriti. At the time of destruction, everything merges back into Mood Maya, and Mood Maya, Golok, all merge back into Mood Purush, and Mood Purush remains in his divine embodied form. It is for this reason that the world underneath Mood Purush is called perishable, and Mood Purush and above is not perishable. Also, since the process of expansion and conversion of energy to mass and matter starts with Mood Purush and below, Mood Purush and below are said to have the states of expansion and contraction. We will talk more about process of creation and destruction next week. This week we will stay focused on status quo. Since Bhagavad Gita is preached by Lord Krishna, it pertains to the level of Mood Purush, or the knowledge to the level of Mood Purush. Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavat are both written by Vyas Muni as a live recording of the world and reality as he saw it. The Ramakrishna Mission has done some research and have found that in Uddhav Gita, also written by Vyas Muni, Arjun requests Lord Krishna to impart that same knowledge in Gita again. And Lord Krishna says, at that time, the Supreme Godhead manifested through me and imparted the knowledge. It may not be possible to do the same again. So there is someone beyond the level of Mood Purush. Raman Maharshi, Ramakrishna Paramhans, Gautam Buddha, and such spiritually elevated ones have said that do not stop at Krishna consciousness. There is more beyond that. However, they are unable to explain what is beyond that. That understanding comes from the Rahasyat Vachanamritam. We will understand this further, but let's for a short while understand that there is brilliance beyond Mood Maya, and there are levels of brilliance, and each level has a definite divinely embodied source associated with it. Let's spend a little more time on Mood Purush and Mood Maya. One common thing to the entities of perishable world is the distinction of body and soul. This distinction goes away with Mood Purush. Mood Purush and up, it is only the divine embodiment and no distinction of body and soul. This divine embodiment does not have a gender. Interestingly, there is a genetic research going on showing that the Y chromosome is deteriorating in quality because if a piece of it is bad, there is no other Y chromosome for replacement, whereas the X chromosome, there are multiple of them available for replacement. The Y chromosome is deteriorating in quality, and a few million years down the road, it will be hard to tell the gender distinction. Now, during my life, Lord Swaminarayan has bestowed upon me the opportunity to explain Lord Swaminarayan's philosophy to some people, some satsangis, some non-satsangis. During those conversations, when we reach this level and I mention about no gender distinction, almost all say, that finally makes sense, since soul does not have a gender. So for non-satsangis, this arouses their interest in knowing more about our religion and belief system. But as they start delving deep, they get confused with some things that they see and read. Most of the time, the first question that comes in is, why are women not allowed in the inner temple premise during Aarti? That is not fair to women. I tell them the perspective needs to be turned around. The saints have renounced the world in order to pursue spiritual progress and have devoted all their activities to spread of religion and knowledge and to help us become better human beings. They have given up all the comforts of home. They eat tasteless food. They wear only cotton. They do not hoard worldly things. And they observe celibacy, which is a must for spiritual progress. Women, the great-hearted human beings that they are, readily make it possible for those saints to attend Aarti while also maintaining their celibate ways of life. For that matter, along the same lines, men are not allowed in Bayonu Mandir or women's temple. The great-hearted men that they are, they help women who have renounced the world to maintain their celibate ways of life. In fact, show me one religion on earth that has built in its infrastructure the right for women to have a temple of their own. A temple of the women, for the women, by the women. In fact, the pro-women principle started with Lord Swaminarayan's parents. Those who have intently read the life of Lord Swaminarayan would know that, different from the norm of the society, of bride going to live with the groom and the in-laws, Dharmapita, father of Lord Swaminarayan, came to live with Bhakti Mata and her parents after marriage. As a social reformer, Lord Swaminarayan stopped the ritual of sati. He also stopped the trend of killing the female child, which is now again crept in devastating quantity in the Indian society. After almost 2000 years, Christianity gave Mother Teresa sainthood. No woman before her got sainthood in Christianity. The same goes with most religions in the world. In Swaminarayan religion, from the very beginning, Lord Swaminarayan has made arrangements for spiritual progress of women. He brought his Anadi Mukta as women in form of Jivuba, Laduba, Rajba, even when they did not want to, due to how gender discrimination works in our world. That this discrimination does not affect them, but our world is affected and infected by it. Anadi Muktraj Param Puja Narayan Mama used to say that Rajba was so powerful that once she said, "Badi hua ghar," in frustration, and the house actually started burning. She then prayed to Lord Swaminarayan to take away her Vachan Siddhi, or the power to convert words to reality. Anadi Muktraj Param Puja Narayan Mama also frequently used to tell the incident of how Sriji Maharaj sent Ladudan Gadvi to impart knowledge to Jivuba and Laduba so that they would agree to marry someone. Instead, Jivuba and Laduba preached Ladudan Gadvi about renouncing worldly things. Following this, Ladudan Gadvi transformed into Brahmanand Swami. The Kirtan Manakiye Chadyare Mohan Vanmadi clearly states that Jivuba did not let the Manki Godi leave the Darbar till Sriji Maharaj promised to come back soon. Think of that power. And not only during life and times of Lord Swaminarayan, but during the life of Abji Bapashri, we had Surajba, Sadaba, Danba Faiba, who were very powerful Anadi Mukta embodied in woman's body. During the life of Anadi Muktraj Param Pujya Somchand Bapa, we had his sister Anadi Muktraj Param Pujya Diwali Ba. My grandfather, Param Pujya Anantrai Bhai Dave, was once suffering with fever for many weeks. Anadi Muktraj Param Pujya Diwali Ba was kind enough to visit our home and could not bear his suffering. She said she was going to sit by the door of my grandfather's room and see how fever dared to get in. That day, my grandfather did not get any fever, and then gradually his fever went away. This is something that I witnessed as a kid. And what words to describe our dearest Anadi Muktraj Param Pujya Leela Masi. We have all been drenched in her divine affection and bliss. In fact, Anadi Muktraj Param Pujya Narayan Mama did not become a saint and stayed in Grihastha ashram so that the entire society can be restored with his blessings. Through all these incidents, we can easily infer that Lord Swaminarayan has given women equal ability and avenues for spiritual progress. So after this kind of conversation, the next questions that arise in people's minds, especially for the newcomers, are around some of the verses in Sikshapatri. The Sikshapatri is written for all, not just a select few. So while these may not raise concerns in our minds, it may in minds of some newcomers. There are some verses around the duties of a married woman. In many societies, women do not have independence to pursue spiritual progress even if they want to. So Lord Swaminarayan has shown a path to these souls by saying that if you genuinely follow the verses in Sikshapatri that align with the societal rules, I, which is Lord Swaminarayan saying, I will liberate you. He has made liberation possible even for them. As for the verses for a widow, once again, many societies, widows are treated differently. It is an unfortunate reality. It is again a promise to those souls that if you genuinely follow the verses, even if you are not able to do any spiritual endeavors due to societal bindings, I will liberate you. The verse on not listening to knowledge talks from women, if we look at it closely, it has an underlying assumption that women will be talking about knowledge. Secondly, there are kirtan from Brahmanand Swami like Badak ne janani sambiju, nahi jagma hitkari re, meaning no one thinks of the welfare and well-being of a child more than the mother. Muktanand Swami was called the mother of the satsang. So it is accepted that mother will provide guidance to her children. Mother will provide protection to her children. So the verse probably does not apply to satsangi brothers who are younger. For satsangi brothers who are of same age or for the elders, it depends on the time, era, and the society. If a mutual, respectful interaction can happen without breaking any moral codes of conduct, it's okay. For those whom the mind is not cooperative, the best is to follow the verse of Sikshapatri. So those are some thoughts on women in Swaminarayan religion. Since we are now going past the gender distinction in our journey, I thought it was a good place to talk a little bit about it. So more Purush and above, the gender discrimination or distinction goes away. Now let's look at the hierarchy as explained by Lord Swaminarayan, Sri Abji Bapa Shri, and Anadi Muktraj Param Pujya Narayan Mama. The mood Maya that emanates from mood Purush has three attributes: Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, and they are in a perfect balance in mood Maya. That is why mood Maya is called Gun Samya. The state associated with in the path of meditation is called Samyavastha. have talked about the characteristic of each attribute in the past. The chart on WebEx shows those again. Since we have already talked about them, we will not spend much time there. So as we talked earlier today, at the time of creation, Mood Maya emerges from the body of Mood Purush. The divine abode of Golok is created, and the devotees of Mood Purush reside in Golok with Mood Purush for the existence of the creation. Mood Purush worships Vasudev Brahm, and infinite Mood Purush reside in the divine brilliance of one Vasudev Brahm. The brilliance of Lord Vasudev Brahm is the sustainer of Mood Purush as well as the soulful Godhead of Mood Purush. At the time of destruction, once everything merges back into him, Mood Purush goes and sits in the assembly of Vasudev Brahm. Sorry about that, I was getting another call. So Mood Purush goes and sits in the assembly of Vasudev Brahm in the brilliance of Vasudev Brahm. At that point, the devotees of Mood Purush only see Mood Purush and do not see Vasudev Brahm or other devotees of Vasudev Brahm. Mood Purush is tasked with creation. Since Mood Purush has the desire to create, apart from the desireful Mood Purush devotees, there are desireless devotees of Vasudev Brahm in the form of Narayan Dev. Narayan Dev visit Badrikashram and also live there sometimes to help the devotees and disciples in Badrikashram attain Vasudev Brahm and move to Brahmapur, which is the divine abode of Vasudev Brahm. Narayan Dev do not have the devotees in Badrikashram worship them, but their Lord Vasudev Brahm. This Badrikashram is within the 8 Vales and is therefore in the perishable world. Similarly, Vasudev Brahm visits and at times lives in Shvetdweep to help the devotees there attain him. The devotees of Shvetdweep work hard to remove the effects of great causal body, which is formed with the desires of creating the universe. Since Mood Purush are with desire to create the universe and they are not trying to eliminate that desire, and Narayan have overcome that desire, the Shvetdweep and the devotees residing there are in between these two strata. The third devotee of Vasudev Brahm is tasked with destruction of worlds and universes created by Mood Purush, and his name is Mahakal. If I were to map Mahakal to anything we know scientifically, I would probably map it to dark energy, which is pulling apart everything that is brought together by the gravity of dark matter or Mood Maya. But this is just a speculation. Mahakal does not have devotees of his own and resides in the assembly of Lord Vasudev Brahm. So while Mood Purush, Mahakal, devotees of Shvetdweep, Narnarayan, all worship Lord Vasudev Brahm, there is a distinction in their levels. Desire-free Narnarayan Devs are the best devotees, followed by devotees in Shvetdweep, trying to eliminate the desire for creation, followed by Mahakal, who destroys the works of Mood Purush, followed by Mood Purush, driven by the desire to create. The divine abode of Vasudev Brahm is called Brahmpur. Vasudev Brahm, his devotees, his divine abode, all remains as is, irrespective of whether any and all Mood Purush are creating and sustaining a universe or not. Vasudev Brahm is also called Divine Pradyumna, since he liberates the souls from Maya. Mahakal is also called Divine Sankarshan, since he destroys the works of Mood Purush. Many Vasudev Brahm reside in the divine brilliance of one Moodakshar, the next level in the hierarchy. Vasudev Brahm do not see the transcendent form of Moodakshar, only the immanent form. That completes our walkthrough of stage 4 and 3, Ishwar Koti and Brahm Koti of the hierarchy. Next week we will talk about theory of creation and destruction and map it to scientific discoveries. We will also talk about what happens to a soul in its journey in spiritual progress as it goes beyond the veil of Maya. Time permitting, we will also touch upon Akshar Koti. The week after that, we will spend with Lord Swaminarayan, his Anadimukta, and the path of meditation and liberation shown to us by them. With that, let's pause here for today. Sajanand Swami Maharaj Ni Jai. A humble prayer to him and Sri Abdi Bapa Shri for Sabani Maya Nokshay, or prayer to diminish the power of Maya on this Sabha, since now we have started talking about things beyond Maya. Thank you to the Sabha for the time, and please be kind to overlook any shortcomings that I may have. Jai Swaminarayan, and Vishal Bhai, over to you.